Thanks for bringing us here, man. This place is spectacular. This is, I was saying before, this is the kind of place that you fly over and you wonder what's going on down there because it's just doesn't, you don't feel like there's anything within, 1,000 miles, and we find ourselves in this isolated place. How did you find Wyoming? Why Wyoming? Why here?
We recorded the last album in Jackson Hole, and I've just been looking to get a place, but I've been looking to get a place here, and I was looking for a multi-thousand acre property, and Jackson Hole didn't have any properties available over 500 acres because I was looking for a place to set up the Yeezy campus. So we found out about Cody and we came here, and when I first got to the ranch, I was expecting something really green because that's what I was used to. So I didn't like it when I first got here. And
Too barren?
Yes, but by the time it was time to leave, I loved it. And I was like, wow, these are actually the Yeezy tones right here.
It's true. It's true.
It actually is the palette. Now that I'm thinking about that, that makes me kind of want to put the other jacket back on. I'm like, wow, I want to wear.
The fleece is good. You look good.
Yeah. And the fleece just feels like,
It's in the Jesus is King palette.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense also.
You talked about Yeezy.
And people will wear fleece 10, 20 years from now. It's more of a future.
Well, I wanted to ask you about
idea.
20 years from now. You talk about Yeezy Camp. What is this place in 20 years?
I have some visions, but the more that I'm in service to God, I just clear my head and just wake up more empty every day and let God do the driving and just use me as he may. So you make plans and God laughs. So if I told you the plans, I could tell you what would happen 6 months from now, not 20 years from now. So we're building farms here because of the climate and because of the soil. We're gonna have hydroponic cotton, wheat, hemp, and we're developing our own fabric. So we're gonna go from seed to sow, from farm to table, so we can see the entire process.
Full sustainability.
Yes.
Which is a concern for all of us, but is present on your mind, the idea of a sustainable future.
We gotta sustain, right?
We do.
Yeah, and for me, I know it's an interview and we're doing talking, but the reason why I didn't want to say 20 years from now, but say 6 months from now is really not about talking. It's about doing. So we are doing. We are in the process right now. I can tell you what I'm doing. Anything else is just
got it.
Talk.
I think the original plan was for you to use your interest in architecture and to build something that gave to the community and expanded into the community from Calabasas. And that didn't manifest itself for one reason or another. Permits, was that the reason why it couldn't happen out in California?
Well, it did manifest that I was able to see it get done. But, I was in California building my domes, and they said my dome was 10 feet too high.
Right.
And they tore it down.
That kind of semantic.
But think about what they're saying. Kanye, your dome is too high. We got to tear it down. So they came to me and said, you have to tear it down, but before I even had the opportunity, now mind you, this is on my own 300-acre property. Before I had the opportunity, they already went to press with it to be like, and by the way, we're going to show everyone and tell everyone that we're tearing down your dome.
So what did that say to you at the time, beyond the actual,
actually
the 10 feet? What does the 10 feet say to you more than anything?
Was the 10 extra seconds that it takes to get a like back when you put something on Instagram, that extra waiting time. Slow yesing people and slowing people down is one of the most popular forms of control. How many times have you had an idea and you just get put in traffic through the bureaucracy? So I don't deal with the traffic at all.
Right.
Any situation where I just be sitting waiting. I'm like, because it's power versus force. I'm not going to force anything. I do what I have the power to do. And if I have to force it, then it's probably not a situation I need to be in.
When I come here and I see the kind of world you're living in here and the kind of environment that you will create 6 months and beyond, I just wonder what, and the transformation you're going through as a human being, what a city like LA feels like when you go back.
It feels a bit cramped for my mind. When you drove here, you didn't see a lot of extra noise. It was the road.
There was nothing.
And then just God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you see all of the billboards, the traffic billboards. When I say traffic, I'm talking about the billboards are actually sex trafficking. Because if a guy is arguing with his girl or something and went through something with his wife, and on one side of the street there's a billboard for spirits, just alcohol. And on the other side, it's call this number, or it's a picture of a woman on a billboard says, come to this strip club.
Yeah.
And he goes and he spends some money just to sit down and have someone to talk to him. At the end of the night, when they close up the club, they say, how much traffic did we have? So there's all different layers to trafficking. Like for me, Playboy was my gateway into full-on pornography addiction. My dad had a Playboy left out at age 5. And it's affected almost every choice I made for the rest of my life from age 5 to now having to kick the habit. And it just presents itself in the open, like it's okay. And I stand up and say, you know, it's not okay.
Yeah, you must be incredibly aware now that you've got to a point where you're actively turning your back on the coping mechanisms that you've been using throughout your life, right? In order to function from that moment in time through to, when did you first start to acknowledge the idea of being born again and absorbing your faith whole, like completely, not just as a Christian walking through society, but actually like in servitude? When was that approximately?
It was like approximately April.
Okay.
It was after Coachella.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
God was using me and it lined up amazing. Like literally the Sunday was Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
But I remember when the hair dye, you know, was placed on my head that morning before Coachella, and it hit my head and it felt cold. And I didn't like it. I had an aversion to it. And then when the guy was dyeing it, I didn't even like how it came out. It had like too much white in it and the tone, it was like purple and white. And I was like, I don't like this. But I had already planned to have like this purple, you know, outfit and this purple hair dye, and you know, I wouldn't have the time to sit and do anything, you know, like that now, because I'm, you know, using my mind to build what we're building with farming, what we're building. We're bringing manufacturing back to the States within the next 2 years. Yeezys, you know, we're going to bring them back to the States. We're creating factories where we have injection molded shoes. We're going to be hiring people through the prison reform. I don't like to say the word system, but second chance people. And just, you know, people gave up on manufacturing. I'm talking about the purple hair for a second.
Go.
But then I want to jump into how we had given up on manufacturing and said, let's just like manufacture overseas, because it seemed like it was what was easier.
Yeah.
And for me as a founder, it's really important to bring these jobs, you know, back to America.
Why? I mean, more specifically, what affected you, that part of the process of building Yeezy offshore?
Let's start creatively. I had this idea for a new boot that we did. And actually the design that we did is very similar to something that we now just saw in a Balenciaga show. So a lot of times me and Dimna, the head designer of Balenciaga, will have similar ideas. Like when we did the 700, they did the triple S at the similar time. So, you know, I built a factory in Canoga, California, so we wouldn't have to go to the factories in China. But 30% of the machines were still in storage, and it was never built all the way to not have to go to China. So the team went to China. They're working on this boot. I call it the motorcycle boot right now. And it's stuck in customs. So I still haven't seen it. I said, do we have a picture of it? Or we don't even have a picture of it. Whereas when I have like this gentleman, Caesar, that works in our office, we'll have an idea and he's just pulling the foam together and molding it right there. I mean, by the end of the day, you get a physical idea of what once was a Photoshop. So for us to be able to rapid prototype, we have to rapid prototype. Even the what we're doing with the way spaces are. You know, it's like we've been stuck in a loop and we got to break the loop. And that's one of the reasons why I took the denim jacket off, even though I love the color, and put on this polar fleece, because the idea is more in the future. In the fabrics, we're looking at the fabrics. Are we going to use traditional cotton, or are we using the polar fleece? What impact does the dye have? And we're studying if we can control the color from the seed. And that's when you go seed to sow, because a lot of times you have a separate cotton factory, and then they send it out to be cut. Then it gets sent back to the cotton factory. Then it gets sent to dye. And we're even talking about things like screen printing to apply color, or dipping it in a different way, because we're just looking like nylon is a 5-story building. So when we're going seed to sow, and I'm looking, because I like the nylon, we have nylon in here, I'm saying, oh wow, we got to have fabrics that don't take 5-story buildings.
I was going to say, you know, because before we were talking and started filming, I was talking about how
I want to get your opinion on why it's important to bring manufacturing back to the States.
I mean, I've only been here 4 or 5 years, but I mean, I know that it's important to the country that there are jobs here and that there are things happening within the country, within the space of the country. I mean, you know, from my point of view, I know that there is a huge amount of deliberation over manufacturing and conditions and wages and all sorts of things offshore. And, you know, I know from talking to people in fashion, talking to people in all kinds of industries, that there's a desire to control that more, to be more in control of how people are treated and how things are made.
I mean, it's really about control. We have to be in control of our own minds, of our own food, our health, and our families.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When I arrived, I said I didn't know whether this was 3,000 years, whether I'm 3,000 years in the past or 3,000 years in the future being on this ranch, because it's so isolated and really you're in the elements. Apart from this cozy environment, we're in the elements right here. This has just been planted in the middle of the space. And it sounds to me like you want to go back to go forward. Like you want to go back and use some of these techniques and these ideas in order to
Rome is
dismantle it ultimately.
Yeah, like Rome is the true Silicon Valley of humanity. A lot of the ideas and things that we need are from thousands and thousands of years ago. It's just like, what do we need for our Maslow's hierarchy of need chart? What are our personal needs as a human being? And what we need the most is each other. That's why we gather together, just like the antelopes that are running out there. We gather together. And what is the best form of each other? Family, to keep our families close. But cities have been designed to create more problems that can create more industries. So it's designed that your job is 45 minutes away so that you can spend time in traffic, so that the cars have more wear and tear and spend more gas and take more gas. But to think of communities where the church is in the center of the community, and then the school, cafeterias, sustainable gardening, and homes. This is the concept that I have. This is what me and Rick Fox went to the Bahamas as we're working on hurricane-proof homes right now. We're thinking of how to look at the amount of wind that's coming through. You know, these houses are going to be way
Yeah, I mean-
lower that I put on here. You know. So I mean, this is not a hurricane, obviously.
No, but I mean, it whips through.
Yeah, and when I was creating the
And it's
domes,
energy too, right? I mean, that's what you were saying before. I mean,
God,
the elements give you what you need, is what you're saying.
Yeah, God gives us everything that we need. What I love about being Christian is I've always been an innovator, but it always seemed like all the innovators were working for, I don't know, Ayn Rand, I heard the term, or something like these ideas that there is no God, all this, and it's just working for the valuation of a company, as opposed to working for the rebirth, or it's not a rebirth, I might not find the right word, but working for a renewal of the planet and a humility in humanity to understand that we will not destroy the earth. We could destroy the resources.
We can destroy ourselves.
And we destroy ourselves, and then the earth goes on.
Sure.
So regardless of what's happening at Wall Street and what's happening at the board, at the, you know, with trade and what's happening, a Pangea type mentality, a UN coming together. One thing, no matter what side you're on, you're considered to be a bad guy or a good guy. Everybody wants a similar thing, and that's for the world to be better for their children. So if someone's fighting in a war, they want the world to be better for their children. And what we're not realizing, being all God's creation, is we have so much more in common than we think. I think there's something planted in us, this idea of, you know, human nature. Even something I was saying, I saw on Silicon Valley, where this guy was like, I don't want the world to be fixed if I'm not the one fixing it. Something, but
no, you're right. We put us, you know, we do. We always put ourselves right in the center of trying to solve things. But I often think that as society, we lack direction and the unity needed to do it as one, right?
We don't always have to be the one that does it. You know, this interview alone might do it. I could be in there and, you know, have these ideas of civil engineering and using aqueducts and sustainable gardening and farming. But there's people out there that are going to see this, and they're going to come to the table and say, you know, I've studied this for 10 years. I've studied this for 10 years. I've studied this for 10 years. And it's something where everybody, all the Fortune 500 companies, all the founders have to come to the table and say, this is what we want.
We were here in 2012.
Yeah, it's a difference between founders and stockholders.
Yeah.
What would you say the difference is?
Well, the founder has the ultimate responsibility for the legacy at hand. The stockholder has the ultimate responsibility for the money and the power and the business of the moment, in the moment.
Yeah, so you gotta look at like Gary from Restoration Hardware. They try to kick him out of his company.
Yeah.
And
because his legacy didn't match up with the power, you know, with the money and the.
And they had to bring him back. That's the thing with a founder. Founders are special, bro.
Yeah, that's
living founders.
Yeah.
You got to honor those living founders. Those are the great grandfathers of what's being built.
So who are the founders right now that you're speaking to?
All of them in this interview. Give me a call.
4 years ago, we did the same thing, but the difference was, and this is how much you've changed over 4 years. 4 years ago, you did the same thing. You turned to the camera and you were like, I need support to build my vision with Yeezy, and I need people to understand my place in fashion, my place outside of just making music, and I want to be taken seriously. And you said, give me a call. Now there's a different mission, and that required you to commit wholesale to your faith, not just as I am a Christian, but wholesale.
You know who my favorite founder is?
Who?
Jack Dorsey.
Right. Why?
Just incredibly smart, visionary. He created a bank on his third company. At one company, it failed. His second company's Twitter. He created Square, and now he's got a new arm, I like saying arm, not division, a bank that allows people to buy stock in companies as big as, I'm gonna say his company, I don't know how to say the name, but it's the one that costs $314,000, Warren Buffett's. Berkshire Hathaway. Jack Dorsey's created an app where someone can buy into that stock at $1. I'm not saying that that is not possible somewhere on the stock market. I'm just saying he created the app that allows everyone
to be investors.
To be invested. I mean, that's just one of the things he did. One of the things that he did is he wanted to invest in me early, and he never tried to sun me. A lot of times I would go out and meet with people in Silicon Valley, and it was really like the first episode of Silicon Valley where Kid Rock is like, yo, I'm Kid Rock. And the very next conversation is, yo, that's Kid Rock. He's the brokest person here.
Right. So you were marginalized, you were trivialized. You felt trivialized in that experience as an entertainer trying to play tech.
Absolutely. And you know, now that I'm in service to Christ, my job is to spread the gospel, to let people know what Jesus has done for me. You know, I've spread it a lot of things. There was a time I was letting you know what high fashion had done for me. I was letting you know what the Hennessy had done for me. I was letting you know all these things, but now I'm letting you know what Jesus has done for me. And in that, I'm no longer a slave. I'm a son now, a son of God. I'm free through to Christ. I'm thinking of something I want to say out loud. Christian innovator. When you think about the church, because it has to stand on the word so hard, it loves to be extra traditional to the point of blocking innovation. So when we started Sunday service, we were able to be free where people were in doubt of it and question. Some people still in question now, saying it's not a church. You can't call it a church because you don't have a pastor. All of these things.
Is it a church?
Well, we have a pastor now. So.
But is it a church? Like, I mean, is that kind of the ultimate compliment for you that Sunday service is a church?
Well, let's ask North what she thinks. We based our design not loosely. Okay, we Zara James Terrell. We one-to-one it. So
it's a good one to use. He's a good one to use.
Yeah. So I have the utmost respect for
unreal.
For Ortega also.
Right.
The head of Zara, because I would like to Zara.
Right.
I want to Zara their infrastructure.
Right.
And the way their office environment. So the church that we did, I was slightly embarrassed to show James that we had copied his circular space.
Yep.
And it didn't even have an Oculus at the top. So we just copied the way he did the benches, and then we did some lights. But the lights would move slow, and sometimes it looked like belly.
So it was a big yurt.
Yeah. So what is yurt?
It's like a big sort of like rounded teepee type environment.
Oh yeah, yes. So I showed, North a picture of a James Terrell structure that I loved. And she said, that looks like church. That's what church looks like to North. And North is, she was last night just actually crying about when she couldn't go to church when it would be out of town and she'd be at school. And she was like, church needs to be here every Sunday. So now we'll only move the church mostly on Friday and only move the choir mostly on Friday and throughout the week. But we'll always have it at home because church does need to be a place that people know they can go to and they don't have to hop on a flight and chase it down and find. That's what is a part of what I think makes it a church. Another thing is when North talks about church, he says, I'm going to bring my friends here and I'm going to dance. Tell me someone that that's in our age group that their most positive memory of their childhood, of one of them equally, was going to church, where people were like, I want to go to church.
And what do you think that is?
Sitting in those pews, the tradition, the four walls. God doesn't exist only in four walls. God is everything and everywhere. So Christian innovation, Christian innovators, that's the net that we're casting for the organization that we have now, looking for
Christian innovator
Christian
entertainer,
innovators.
rapper, preacher.
Well, no longer entertainer. I'm not here for anyone's entertainment.
Interesting. Interesting. So let me ask you this real quick, because I want to go here for a minute.
Yeah.
North's all in. You're raising your family in this environment now, and they support you and they're believing. Kim as well?
Yes.
Right. So what about, like, say you're making this album, what about those who are talented, who bring something special to the table, who are creative, who inspire you in that regard, but not necessarily worshiping at the altar? How's your relationship with them changed because you're so driven by your faith now?
They're still here.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was King David. Now, I'm not a theologian. I'm a recent convert. So I just wanted to say that before I start quoting or misquoting scripture.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on a journey.
Yes. So, that was this journey of this album. You know, there was times where I was asking people to fast during the album. I was asking people to, this is going to be radical, what I'm about to say. I know this is, we can look at it, the edit. There's times where I was asking people to not have premarital sex while they were working on the album. Mm-hmm. I know that's one for the shade room. Be like, what you mean don't have premarital sex? You better turn that Meg Thee Stallion on right now.
Right.
Yeah, so that, but seriously, there's times where I was, there's times where I went to people that were working on other projects and said, could you just work and focus on this?
And not just because you needed their attention, but because it wasn't in keeping with the spirit of what you were making. You felt that it was at odds, what they were working on.
Yeah, I thought it would
tarnish the experience.
Yeah, I thought if we could all focus and fast. I mean, it's known when people pray together, families that pray together, stay together. When people pray together and fast together, the power is increased. So I had some things where theories, recent converts, they go in and, we're a lot of times the most fire and brimstone, the most judgmental.
Yeah.
Because we don't know everything that we did was of and not for God. So we have to
It's
really
a reaction
discern.
to a degree, isn't it? It's a reaction of what you've left behind. So you feel like you must commit 1,000% to something in order to leave behind the environment you came from.
And tell other people that are around that they need to be committed 1,000%. And that's the thing. But God was patient, and my family was patient for me when they were praying for me. When they saw me at the Pornhub Awards, there's family members, they couldn't tell me not to do it. All they could do was pray and be patient, and it had to happen in God's time. So for me, when I have people around who I would like them to be where I'm at in my journey, there's times where all I could do is pray and be patient, because it's going to only be in God's time.
But you've lived a well-documented life filled with temptation, and it's all throughout your records and all throughout your music, and it's been quoted. And what's your relationship with temptation now? How do you process that? Are you able, once you find God to the degree you have, to just switch that off? Is that possible?
I think when people have been addicted to something, like if you ask somebody that's a drug addict, it's like you say, are you still addicted? Well, yeah, you turn it off, actually. Like with God, I've been able to beat things that had a full control of me. Things that, that Playboy that I found when I was 5 years old was written all over the moment when I was at the MTV Awards with the Timberlands, the Balmain jeans, before people was rocking Balmain jeans, and the Hennessy bottle. It's like that was such a script out of a rock star's life. My mom had passed a year before, and I said, some people drown themselves in drugs, and I drown myself in my addiction.
Which was what?
Sex.
And that's what drove the ego too. Fed the ego.
I mean, that was part of feeding the ego. Money, clothes, cars, accolades. the advent of social media, a Twitter account, paparazzi photos, going to Paris Fashion Week, all of that.
It's overwhelming. I mean, when you clear your mind to the degree you are now, and you sit out here in Wyoming making music, which is spiritually fulfilling to you and hopefully to millions of other people.
You know what? I was not just addicted to sex. I was also addicted to inspiration. But there's only one, you know.
Aren't they both serving the same purpose to some degree? And I mean this, let me qualify that statement. Okay, addiction, be it sex, drugs, alcohol, is a coping mechanism that is designed to fill a space in you that can't be filled, an insatiable hole, right? Requiring more and more. You said inspiration, maybe I'm meaning more ambition. Isn't that doing the same thing?
Well, they said that, you know, a lot of successful men had a high sex drive.
Right.
Who
said that?
You know, they.
So many quotes attributed to they. I love it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what I meant by addicted to inspiration, yeah, it could be, the sex could be an inspiration, but also just a design image, you know, a jacket that I wanted to design, a car image, a house image. I was addicted to these kind of images coming across. Like there'll be people who say, oh, architecture is my porn. And people can be addicted to architecture. People, I mean, a big addiction is work.
Yeah, very much so.
Workaholics.
Most common.
And what about, you know, men and women that say, hey, you know, I'm working this job so hard to make a better life for my kids. And they look up and they hadn't spent their life with their kids.
When do you live your life with your actual kids? Where do you find that balance?
You say, I'm working to make a better life with my kids, but when are you going to spend your life with your kids?
Yeah.
And really, it's like, did you have to work for that fourth house? You know, did you have to work for the...
Well, did you?
I didn't have to. There's a balance of family and calling that I specifically have. I have to protect and take care of my family and make sure with the power that God has put in my hands that I do everything that I can as the father to provide the best chance at them being the maximum success that they can be. That was a very specific,
very thoughtful answer.
Yeah, because I didn't say normal life.
No, it was very thoughtful. It was very deliberate. It was very deliberate.
So,
and I get that. I understand.
And I said as a father because they also have a mother.
That's right.
So it's the balance.
And it's not about the fourth house. It's about the environment that you create. Ultimately, they're learning, right?
Yeah, and also the environment of, because of my position in the world, the environment that I inform for other people. You know, we've informed a successful celebrity marriage, a successful interracial marriage where the husband was the darker color inside of America. We've informed some things that I wasn't as into now, where, you know, I literally was up there trying to have my daughter outdress Rihanna. It sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but if you really think about it, it's like his daughter was walking around with a slip dress. The culture was my God.
Because and this was documented. This was documented in Keeping Up with the Kardashians in a scene really interesting to watch. The dynamic of you and Kim, where she ultimately said, you were complicit in this experience, and now you're asking me to change, and away from the cameras. That's another example of what you're talking about, is it not?
I always had a bit of a version of paparazzi, which has been documented also, and I've also had a aversion to cameras being on at all times. There's a balance of when We have to be closed on Sunday. But the idea I was going to say is, I thought I was the God of culture, but really culture was my God. And who invented the culture? The culture is cultivated by who? So if you were to think, what is the culture today? What are some of the major things that it includes? And all of the major points of what might make the culture bowing, taking a knee at a football game, wearing, expensive clothes, rapping about just rap, period. Making money from rap, making money from basketball. Before I get to my point, can we name some other things that you say are part of the culture? Buying jewelry. What are some of the other things that we see on the culture? Using social media is a very major part of the culture. To be down with or with the culture, you have to use social media, right? What other things? Okay, now I'm gonna just get to my point right now. None of these things that you need to be involved in order to be down with the culture are owned by Black people. So who designed the culture?
A lot of people would argue that you are instrumental in driving the culture and you own your own companies, that you have inspired that change.
Well, it's inspired now, but did you know that this is where I was going with it when I named all those things?
You didn't name yourself, though.
You didn't name yourself. You didn't name yourself. And yeah, it's a very valid point. I think that's changing. I think that culture is very squarely going into the hands and the influence now of the new founders.
I mean, when Chance said don't sign anything,
right?
His tour was canceled like the next week. Spiritual warfare.
Okay, let's talk about that.
You're saying, okay.
No, I get it, I get it.
And God is changing. God is using me. God is using me to show off, I believe. God is similar to...
You're saying he wanted the loudest voice and the one who made the most noise to make the most impact?
Yeah, he wanted to show off. He's like, now let me take this Nebuchadnezzar type character. Nebuchadnezzar was the king, is it Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. And he looked at his entire kingdom and said, I did this. And God said, oh, for real, you did this? Sounds kind of similar, right? I'm standing on the tip of the mountain talking about Jesus, saying,
That's right.
I did this.
I'm a God.
That I'm a God. And I could talk to Jesus at the end of my show. I had a guy dressed up as Jesus at the end of my show.
He was standing on a huge mountain on that tour.
And that huge mountain, first of all, I didn't make any money off that tour. I'm lugging a mountain around, and God said, okay, Nebuchadnezzar was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He was still king. So not only was I diagnosed with mental illness, the mental illness is something that was used to take my dome down by 10 feet, to wash me out, to control me. Let me tell you one of the things.
You're saying that they tore it down because it was based on the fact that they consider what you were doing to be crazy?
No, that's not what I'm saying, but I see that you took it in that way. No, I was just comparing my dome and saying, this guy that can go up to the telethon, this guy that we can cancel him off of radio and still 20,000 kids come to see him, and he is completely not played by the rules of the system and still the most relevant. We could take him off the time cover. We could do no covers on him on purpose. On purpose. We could just take away press, no publicists. We could do that. And he still has the #1 searched brand on the planet. Meaning like #1, Yeezy, #2, Off-White, #3, Adidas, and then the other 3 is like Adidas, Nike, and Louis Vuitton. I don't know which one was which. But the #1 was Yeezy, and all the other ones I'm closely associated with in some way. Every one of these